I bought the chained wolf to save him, unaware that I was freeing the king. The market was alive with shadows and whispers. It was not the kind of market where children laughed or merchants shouted. This one was different, hidden in the far corner of the city, behind walls of gray stone that seemed to drink in the sunlight. Here, the air smelled of iron, old leather, and something faintly sweet, like the memory of flowers that no longer bloomed. Ilara walked carefully between the stalls. Her boots struck the cobblestones softly, and her eyes darted from one shadow to another. She did not come here for fun. She had debts that weighed like stones on her shoulders, debts that would not wait, and she had heard a rumor that might save her little home and the people she loved. The rumor spoke of a chained wolf. Not a wolf like the ones that roamed the forests near the city, but a strange creature, bound by iron and magic, kept behind bars because of what it was. Some said it was cursed. Others whispered that it was a prince who had been punished by the gods. Most avoided it for fear of death or madness. But Alara had never been one to fear shadows. She found the cage in a corner of the market, surrounded by merchants and bidders who did not dare approach too closely. The wolf inside was large, its fur black as midnight, and its eyes were the color of storms before the rain. They held intelligence, sorrow, and a hunger that made her pulse quicken. The auctioneer's voice rasped through the air. "Do not be fooled," he warned. "This is no ordinary beast. He bites, he scratches, he curses those who look too long into his eyes. He is dangerous." Alara did not flinch. She stepped closer. "How much?" she asked. Her voice was quiet but firm. "More than any of you can pay," the auctioneer said. He smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp for comfort. "He is a treasure or a nightmare." Alara looked into the wolf's eyes. The creature watched her, tilting its head slightly as if it recognized something in her. Something soft, something brave, something willing to reach into danger for the sake of another. She felt a strange tug in her chest, a pull she could not explain. "I'll buy him," she said. The words surprised her even as they left her lips. She had no idea what she would do with him. She only knew that leaving him chained alone was impossible. The crowd gasped. The auctioneer's smile vanished, replaced by a frown. "You dare," he said, his voice sharp. "Do you understand what you are buying?" "I do," Alara said. She reached into her bag and produced the coins she had been saving for months. Each coin was heavy in her hand, each a promise to herself that she would survive. She laid them on the table, and the auctioneer hesitated, counting them carefully. Finally, he nodded. "It is yours," he said. "Take care, and may the gods forgive you." Alara's heart thumped in her chest as she lifted the cage. The wolf did not struggle. It simply stared at her as though it had been waiting for her all along. She felt a shiver run down her spine. That night she brought the cage to her small home. The streets were quiet, the fog thick, curling around the lanterns like smoke. She placed the cage in the corner of her room. The wolf did not move. It only watched her, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Alara," she whispered, as if saying her own name aloud might give her courage. "I'm going to help you. I don't know how yet, but I will." For hours she watched him. The wolf's chest rose and fell with slow, even breaths. Occasionally he would tilt his head as if listening to something she could not hear. She felt both fear and wonder. She had never seen anything so alive, so full of power, so human in its presence. Suddenly, the wolf's eyes shifted. They locked onto hers, and she felt a strange heat in her chest, a warmth that was not fear. The wolf's lips curled slightly, not in a snarl but in something like recognition. Then a sound escaped him, not a growl, not a bark, but a low, haunting hum. It filled the room, vibrating against the walls, the floor, and her bones. Ilara froze. The sound was like a song of sorrow and longing, a melody she did not understand but could feel in every part of her. She realized in a sudden and terrifying clarity that this creature was more than a wolf. There was intelligence there, pain, memory, and maybe even a soul. Days passed. Alara fed him, spoke to him, and tried to understand the strange pull between them. She learned his moods, his habits, the flicker of his emotions in his glowing eyes. The townspeople whispered rumors as she walked past, but she ignored them. She felt bound to him, not by chains but by something deeper. One night, a storm rolled over the city. Thunder shook the windows of her small home, and lightning cast long, jagged shadows across the walls. Ilara sat by the cage, brushing rainwater from her hair, when the wolf suddenly stirred. He rose on his hind legs, taller than she had imagined possible, and pressed his large, dark paws against the bars. The chains rattled but did not break, and then she blinked. The wolf was changing. Fur receded from his body, muscles shifted and lengthened. Eyes that had been storm-colored now glowed with golden fire. Claws retracted, hands forming, fingers long and strong. Within moments where the chained wolf had stood, there now stood a man. A man tall and regal, with dark hair plastered to his shoulders from the storm and eyes that burned like lightning trapped in amber. Ilara gasped, stumbling backward. She had expected many things, but this was beyond imagination. The man, the Wolf King, looked down at her. His gaze was piercing, full of ancient pain and sudden awareness. "You freed me," he said, his voice low, powerful, and strangely musical. "Do you understand what you have done?" I thought you were just a wolf," Ilara stammered. She did not step back this time, though a part of her screamed to flee. Her hands shook. I wanted to save you. I didn't know. You saved me," he interrupted, stepping closer, yet keeping careful distance. "But in saving me, you have changed the balance of this world." His eyes softened, though the weight of centuries of betrayal and magic still lingered in them. "You do not know the dangers you have brought upon yourself." Ilara swallowed. The storm outside roared, and she felt as if the wind itself carried whispers of secrets long buried. Then, "Help me understand," she said. "Help me know what you are, who you are." He studied her, the intensity in his gaze making her heart beat faster. "I am Kale," he said finally, the name falling like a thunderclap. "I was a king once, before betrayal and curse took everything from me. And now you have freed me from my chains, though I am not free yet. The world still wants me dead." Ilara felt a chill, realizing the enormity of what she had done. Then we'll face it together," she said, though even as she spoke, doubt gnawed at her. She was only one person, and he was a king, a being of power and danger, not meant to walk beside a mortal. Kale tilted his head, a gesture almost wolf-like, though it was the human in him that moved. "Perhaps," he said, almost wistfully, "perhaps there is a reason you found me after all." As the storm raged outside, Ilara and Kale sat in silence, two souls bound by chains unseen. One was human, small and fragile yet courageous. The other was a king, trapped between worlds, seeking redemption and revenge, mercy and power. Both carried loneliness that stretched across centuries, loneliness now interrupted by a presence neither had expected. Then, as lightning split the sky and thunder shook the city, Kale's eyes glowed brighter, and he whispered almost to himself, "I have waited a long time, and now my fate begins again." Ilara realized, with both awe and fear, that the chained wolf she had bought to save had been a king all along, and she had no idea what the coming days would demand of either of them. The storm outside passed, leaving silence in its wake, but inside the small room, tension and magic lingered. Both human and king knew, without words, that nothing could ever be the same again. And as Ilara drifted into a restless sleep, she could not shake the feeling that the world beyond her window had changed forever, and that danger, darkness, and destiny had all arrived with the man she had freed from chains. The morning sun was pale, almost afraid to rise above the city. Mist clung to the streets, curling around rooftops and lanterns as if it were alive. Ilara woke to the faint rustle of movement. Her heart skipped a beat when she remembered the previous night, the storm, the transformation, the king hidden behind the wolf's form. Kale was no longer in his human form when she opened her eyes. Instead, he crouched in the corner, fur sleek and black, eyes bright with an intelligence that chilled and fascinated her. He watched her unmoving, almost like a sentinel guarding secrets she was not yet ready to understand. "Good morning," Alara whispered, her voice trembling. She did not know if he could understand, but she had to speak. Kale tilted his head, a low growl rumbling in his chest, not of anger but of warning. Then he walked to the small hearth where a thin fire still burned and settled near it. His presence filled the room with an almost unbearable tension, both dangerous and mesmerizing. Alara knew she could not keep him hidden forever. The city was not kind to magic, to beasts, or to kings forgotten by time. She had saved him from chains, but she had not saved him from the world, or from the curse that had bound him. She prepared a small meal, speaking softly as she worked. "I don't know your story," she said, "but I want to. I want to help if you let me." Kale's eyes met hers. In those storm-colored depths, fragments of memory flickered, visions of a throne room lit by torches, of banners torn and bloodied, of men kneeling in fear and worship. He had been a king once, yes, but not just any king. He had ruled a land of power, magic, and ambition. And he had been betrayed. "The curse," he said finally, his voice low, "was not made by chance. It was punishment, and yet it was meant to last for eternity. No mortal hand could have undone it until now." Alara hesitated. "You mean I broke it?" Kale nodded slowly, but his expression darkened. "I am free of the chains, but I am not yet free of the world. My enemies wait, and the curse lingers in ways even I cannot see." Days passed, and Kale began to trust Alara more. She learned his habits, the way he reacted to sunlight, to shadows, to the sound of her voice. At times, he would shift between forms without warning, a towering man one moment, a black wolf the next, reminding her of the danger that lurked within him. Yet in the quiet hours they found moments of fragile connection. Kale would tell her of the past in fragments, a kingdom divided by greed, a council of men who envied him, a queen who had loved him, then betrayed him, and the gods who had cursed him with a body that could not remain human, with a form that inspired fear rather than love. Alara listened, her heart aching for the king who had lost everything. She understood the loneliness of a creature bound by fate and the longing for something pure, something human. "You survived it all," she said one night, as they watched the moonlight spill across the rooftops. "Even after the betrayal, the curse, you survived." Kale's golden eyes softened. "Survival is not living," he replied. "I have lived, but only in fragments. Pieces of myself have been lost. The throne I once ruled lies in ruins. My people, my kingdom, all taken by those who did not understand loyalty or love. I am not whole." Alara reached out, her hand brushing his fur. Maybe you can be whole again. Not the king you were, but something new, something better." He lowered his head, close enough that she could see the sadness etched into every line of his wolfish face. "And what of you?" he asked. "Do you not fear me? Do you not see the danger of touching what is cursed, what is powerful beyond measure?" "I fear nothing that cannot be faced," she said. "I chose to save you, and I will not regret that choice." For a moment they simply existed together, two beings caught between worlds, bound by fate. Then, as the night deepened, a sound broke the silence, a distant howl that did not belong to the city but to the wild forests beyond. Kale stiffened, ears twitching, eyes narrowing. "The curse has watchers," he said, "creatures born of the same magic that bound me. They sense freedom and they will not forgive it." Alara's heart quickened. "Then we must be careful." But Kale shook his head. "Careful is not enough. We must act. There is a path, though dangerous, that may restore more than just my form. It may reclaim what was stolen, my throne, my kingdom, and perhaps my redemption." Alara felt a mixture of awe and fear. To step into a king's war, a world of curses and power, was beyond anything she had imagined. Yet she could not turn away. She had saved him once. Now she would walk beside him into the unknown. They prepared to leave the city at dawn. Kale shifted into his human form before the journey, towering and strong, but tempered by a weariness that made him almost vulnerable. Alara packed lightly, knowing that strength alone would not be enough. They would need cunning, courage, and trust in each other. The journey led them to the ruins of Kale's castle, a place swallowed by fog and the passage of time. Towers leaned at impossible angles, walls crumbled, and vines strangled what remained of the gates. It was here that Kale's memories became more vivid, haunted by betrayal and sorrow. "This was my throne room," he whispered, voice trembling with both memory and pain. "I ruled here once, and yet now it is nothing but stone and shadow." Alara placed a hand on his arm. "Then we will make it more. We will rebuild, or at least reclaim what is yours." Kale looked at her, golden eyes filled with storm and wonder. "You speak as though you understand kingship, as though you can bear the weight of power." "I do not," she admitted. "But I can stand with you, and sometimes that is enough." They explored the ruins, careful of traps left behind by enemies, remnants of magic designed to keep intruders away. Kale's wolf instincts guided them, and his knowledge of the land revealed secrets even centuries of decay could not hide. As they ventured deeper, the air grew colder. Shadows seemed to move independently, whispering warnings in voices that were both human and inhuman. Alara felt a chill in her bones, a sense that the past was alive and watching. "It is not just the living who wait," Kale said quietly. "The curse has left echoes, spirits of those who served me, who betrayed me, who fell because of me. They linger and they do not forgive." Suddenly a figure stepped from the mist, a soldier, armor tarnished, eyes hollow, moving with a silence that betrayed centuries of death. Alara gasped, instinctively reaching for Kale. Kale stepped forward, placing himself between her and the figure. "It is a shadow of the past," he said, voice low and steady. "One of my old guards, cursed to linger. He remembers loyalty and betrayal." The shadow raised a hand, pointing at Kale, and whispered a single word: "You failed." Kale's body tensed, eyes flashing with both rage and sorrow. Alara could see the struggle within him, the beast, the man, the king, all fighting for control. She stepped closer. "Do not let it take you," she said softly. "You are not the same man they remember." He exhaled slowly, muscles relaxing, and the shadow dissipated into mist, leaving only the echoes of memory behind. Kale sank to his knees, head in his hands, and for a moment he looked entirely human in his despair. Alara knelt beside him. "You survived because you are stronger than the curse," she whispered, "and because you are not alone anymore." Kale looked up, eyes meeting hers, and for the first time there was something beyond pain in his gaze, something resembling hope, fragile and tentative, yet real. But the moment did not last. From the ruins above, a low, menacing laugh echoed. It was a sound that chilled the air, carrying the weight of power and malice. Kale's ears flicked, his body stiffened. "They know we are here," he said, voice tight. "The usurper, the one who cursed me, he senses my freedom, and he will come." Alara's heart pounded. "Then we fight," she said, determination hardening her voice. "We reclaim what belongs to you, whatever it takes." Kale's gaze softened, a fleeting smile touching his lips. "You are braver than any soldier I have ever commanded," he said. "Perhaps the kingdom is not lost if you are at my side." The mist thickened around them, and in its swirling shadows, they could almost see the shape of the world that had been stolen, waiting for a king to rise and a queen, or at least a companion, to stand beside him. And as the sun sank below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruins, Alara realized the journey ahead would test more than strength or skill. It would test trust, courage, and the fragile bond forming between human and king, between past and future, between chains broken and destiny claimed. But before they could take the next step, a sudden, piercing howl cut through the air. A signal, a warning, a promise. Kale's head snapped toward the sound, ears pinned, muscles coiled. Alara felt her pulse quicken. The Watchers were coming, and nothing would ever be the same. The forest was alive in a way the city never was. Even in the fading light of evening, shadows moved with purpose, twisting around ancient trees whose trunks were thick and knotted like the fingers of some long-forgotten god. Mist crawled along the ground, hiding roots, rocks, and hidden paths. Each step Alara took made her heart beat faster. She could feel that the forest itself was watching. Kale walked beside her, tall and commanding, yet careful not to touch her unless necessary. His golden eyes scanned the shadows, alert to every movement. Even in human form, he carried the presence of the wolf within him, his senses sharp, muscles tense, and instincts ready to strike. "This forest is not natural," he said quietly. "It is old, older than the cities. Magic lives here and not all of it is friendly." Alara nodded, gripping the strap of her satchel. "Then we have to be careful." Kale gave a small, almost approving nod. "Care is wise, but sometimes courage is required more than caution." They followed a path overgrown with roots and vines, which twisted around them as if trying to slow their passage. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, and a sense of unease settled like a stone in Alara's stomach. Every sound was amplified, the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, even their own breathing seemed loud. After some time, they reached a clearing. The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light across the ruins of a long-abandoned temple. Pillars lay broken, covered in moss, and the air smelled faintly of iron and earth. It was a place that had seen worship long ago, now corrupted by time and neglect. "This is where I once sought counsel," Kale said, his voice low and full of regret. "Before betrayal. Before the curse. The magic here it remembers, it will test us." Alara looked at the ruins with awe. "Test us how?" she asked. Kale's eyes glowed faintly. "It will show us fears. It will force us to face what we try to hide, and it will try to separate us if it can." Alara shivered, feeling the weight of his words. "Then we face it together." They stepped into the temple ruins. The air seemed heavier inside, charged with ancient energy that made the hairs on their arms rise. Shadows moved where no light touched, forming shapes that were almost human, almost wolf, almost something else entirely. "Do not trust your eyes," Kale warned. "Not everything here is real." Almost immediately, the forest magic reacted. Figures appeared, shadowy echoes of Kale's past. Soldiers who had served him, friends who had betrayed him, faces of those he had loved and lost. They moved with silent grace, circling them, whispering accusations and threats. "You failed," one hissed. "You brought ruin," another cried. "Your kingdom is gone," a third whispered, voice like dry leaves. Kale stiffened, muscles coiling. The wolf inside him growled, low and dangerous. "Ignore them," he said, but his voice trembled with old anger and pain. Alara stepped closer. "I will not leave you," she said. "Whatever this magic shows, it cannot change who you are now. You are not them and you are not the past." Kale's eyes softened for a moment and he took a deep breath. Slowly, he began to walk through the shadows, moving with careful precision. The figures lunged, whispers became screams, but Kale's presence held steady. Alara followed, feeling both fear and admiration for him. At the center of the temple, the shadows converged. A single figure remained, a woman, regal and terrifying, with eyes full of fire. Kale froze. "Lyria," he whispered, voice heavy with memory. You were the queen." The figure smiled, cold and cruel. "And yet you forget me," she said. Her voice echoed, carrying both accusation and sorrow. "You betrayed me, Kale. You left me to die, and now you return, claiming the right to rule what you abandoned." Kale's jaw tightened. "I did not abandon, I was cursed. I was stolen from you and from everything I loved." "Cursed, yes," Lyria said, her form shifting like smoke. "But you are weak. And you fear your power, you always have." Alara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her chest. "You are not weak," she said. "He has survived what no one else could. He faces his past and still moves forward. That is strength, and it cannot be taken by shadows or memories. Lyria's eyes flickered, and for a moment the figure seemed uncertain. Kale's hand brushed against Alara's, a subtle gesture of trust. "You are brave," he said softly, "and wise beyond your years. Stay close, for this is only the beginning." The shadows surged again, testing them, trying to separate them, but Kale and Alara moved together, their bond strengthening with every step. The forest magic seemed to recognize it, recoiling as if threatened by their courage. Finally, the echoes of the past dissipated, leaving only silence and the distant sound of the wind through the trees. Kale sank to his knees, exhausted. Alara knelt beside him. "We survived," she whispered. "Yes," he said, voice low and hoarse. "But the danger is far from over. The usurper who cursed me, he knows I am free. He will come, and he will bring the full force of his power. We must be ready." Alara nodded, determination hardening her features. "Then we prepare, together." For the next days, they journeyed deeper into the forest, following paths that only Kale seemed to recognize. They avoided traps of twisted magic, creatures that lurked in the mist, and spirits that tested their courage. With each challenge, Kale taught Alara to trust her instincts, to move silently, and to see the world as he once had, as a king who understood both strategy and danger. At night, they camped in hidden clearings. Kale would shift between forms as needed, sometimes wolf, sometimes man, always watching, always protective. Alara learned to read his moods, to understand the subtle signs of tension, hunger, or fear. She also learned that behind the king's power and the wolf's instincts, there was a man capable of deep thought, regret, and longing. One evening, as they rested beside a quiet stream, Alara watched Kale study his reflection in the water. His golden eyes, usually so fierce, were soft and distant. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Regret what?" he asked, though he did not turn to her. "Surviving, coming back, facing the past." Kale's jaw tightened. "Regret, no. I cannot change the past. I can only face what comes next, but fear is another matter. Fear of failing again, fear of losing what little I have left, that haunts me." Alara reached out, touching his hand. "Then let me stand with you. Whatever comes, we face it together." He looked at her then, and for the first time a faint smile touched his lips. "Perhaps that is what I needed all along." The following day, they approached the edge of the forest. In the distance, the dark spires of the usurper's fortress rose against the horizon, a place of twisted stone and shadow. Lightning flickered across the towers, not from a storm but from the power that lingered there, magic old and cruel, designed to crush kings and those who dared challenge fate. Kale stiffened, sensing the power from afar. "This is it," he said. "The usurper waits. He has been preparing for centuries, and now he knows I am free. We cannot falter." Alara swallowed. "Then we fight, not just for you but for your people, for the kingdom that deserves to live again." Kale's eyes softened, and he took her hand. "Your courage gives me strength," he said. "Do not let it falter, even when the darkness rises around us." As they stepped toward the fortress, the forest seemed to close behind them, the mist swirling like a final warning. Shadows moved, whispers echoed, and the air hummed with anticipation. The king and the woman who had freed him were walking into a court of shadows, a place where past and present, life and death, magic and power collided. And somewhere within the fortress, the usurper watched. He knew Kale was coming. He had waited, centuries in darkness, for this moment. And when Kale arrived, he would see just how deep the price of freedom truly went. Alara's heart pounded in her chest. She did not know what awaited them, but she knew one thing. She would not turn back, not now, not ever. Kale walked beside her, regal, fierce, and haunted, his golden eyes reflecting both the storm within and the hope of what could be reclaimed. Together, they entered the shadowed path to destiny, unaware of the traps, magic, and betrayals that awaited. But bound by courage, trust, and a bond that could withstand even the darkest of nights. Then, as they crossed the final clearing before the fortress, a figure stepped from the shadows, a man in black armor, his face hidden by a helm, holding a sword that crackled with dark energy. Kale froze, and Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. "You dare approach the throne," the figure said, voice echoing like death itself. "And yet you know nothing of the price you will pay." Kale's jaw tightened. "We will face it," he said. "Together." The figure laughed, a sound that made the air tremble. "Then let the Court of Shadows decide your fate." Alara gripped Kale's hand. The fortress loomed ahead. Shadows whispered, and the final trial had begun. The fortress loomed like a black wound against the horizon. Its spires clawed at the sky, and shadows pooled around its walls as if the building itself breathed darkness. Kale and Alara paused at the edge of the clearing, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down upon them. "Are you ready?" Kale asked, his voice low, steady, yet carrying a tremor of uncertainty. Alara nodded, gripping the hilt of the small dagger she carried, not because it could harm a king or a usurper, but because holding it gave her courage. "I am," she said. "We face this together." Kale's golden eyes softened, and he lowered his head in a brief gesture of gratitude. "Then let it begin." The gates of the fortress were massive, made of black stone that shimmered faintly with dark magic. As Kale stepped forward, the air thickened, pressing against their lungs. Shadows moved independently, forming shapes that whispered in voices of the long dead, warning, mocking, testing. At the threshold, the black-armored figure from the forest awaited. His sword hummed with energy that seemed older than the world itself. "You come for the throne," he said, voice like grinding stone. "Do you know what you ask?" Kale did not flinch. "I ask what is mine, what was stolen, and I claim it not for power but for justice." The figure laughed, a sound that made the walls of the fortress vibrate. "Justice? A king turned wolf cursed for arrogance, betrayal, and pride. You speak as if you understand the world. You are nothing but a shadow." Kale's hands tightened into fists. "I am more than a shadow. And this woman," he gestured toward Alara, "has reminded me that even in darkness one can find courage, one can find hope." The figure struck, and the clash of magic and steel rang through the fortress. Shadows erupted from the walls, forming hands, claws, and eyes that lashed at Kale and Alara. Kale shifted between man and wolf, fluid and strong, deflecting attacks, moving with the precision of both predator and king. Alara stayed close, dodging shadows, helping when she could, speaking words of encouragement to Kale. "You can do this," she shouted. "You've survived worse. Remember who you are." The battle was not only physical but also spiritual. The fortress tested Kale's heart, dredging up memories of betrayal, failure, and loss. Shadowy figures of former friends, courtiers, and enemies rose from the walls, accusing him, striking him with memories sharper than any blade. Kale faltered, growling as a shadow of his old queen lunged at him, accusing him of abandoning her. Alara stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. "Do not listen to them," she said firmly. "You are not the man they accuse. You are Kale, the king who has endured. Stand." Her words cut through the darkness like sunlight. Kale's eyes blazed gold, and a roar of fury and determination echoed from his chest. He struck the shadows with controlled force, breaking illusions, scattering the echoes of his past. At the heart of the fortress they found the usurper, the true master of the curse. Cloaked in black with eyes like molten stone, he radiated power that warped the air around him. "So, you have returned," he said, voice low and full of menace. The Wolf King with his mortal companion. "You dare challenge me?" Kale stepped forward, no longer hesitant. "I do," he said. "Not as a wolf, not as a man, but as a king. You took everything from me, my throne, my people, my life. But you cannot take what I have found again, courage, trust, and the will to stand." The usurper laughed. "Courage, trust, will, you are weak, Kale. I made you into a wolf for a reason. You cannot overcome what you are." Alara stepped beside Kale, gripping his hand. "You forget one thing," she said, voice steady. "Even the darkest curse cannot destroy hope, and the strongest magic cannot break what is true." The fortress shivered, the air crackling as their combined presence, Kale's power and Alara's courage, pushed back against the usurper's magic. Shadows writhed and hissed, but they could not penetrate the bond forming between king and companion. Kale raised his hands, summoning the strength of his true self. His form shifted fluidly, wolf and man blending until he was fully king again, golden eyes blazing with authority and power. "I am Kale," he shouted. "I am no shadow, no curse, no prisoner. I am a king, and I reclaim my right." The usurper struck with all his might, waves of dark energy surging toward them. Kale met the attack, countering with the power of his lineage and the strength of his bond with Alara. The fortress trembled, pillars cracking, shadows screaming as they fought. Alara, though mortal, stood firm. She called to Kale words of strength and trust, reminding him that he was not alone. "You are more than the past. You are everything you were meant to be." Kale's roar shook the fortress, and the usurper faltered. Centuries of magic, hatred, and power could not withstand the unity of courage and heart. With a final, decisive strike, Kale shattered the usurper's dark staff, the source of his power. The fortress quaked violently, and shadows dissolved into mist. The usurper fell to his knees, powerless, his face a mask of disbelief. "No, this cannot be. I controlled fate itself." "You forgot one truth," Kale said, stepping forward, regal and commanding. "Fate may test us, but it cannot break those who choose courage and love." The usurper vanished into shadows, defeated but not destroyed, leaving the throne room in silence. Kale turned to Alara, breathing heavily, eyes still glowing gold. "It is done," he said. "The curse is broken, the usurper is gone, and the kingdom begins anew." Alara stepped closer, hands trembling but steady. "You did it. You faced everything and survived. You are free." Kale knelt before her, the weight of centuries lifting from his shoulders. "No," he said softly, "I am not free without you. You saved me from more than chains, more than magic. You saved me from myself. You are my strength, my guide, and perhaps my heart." Alara's eyes widened. "Kale," she whispered. He took her hand gently, holding it as one would hold a treasure. "I have been king of nothing for too long, but with you, I feel whole, not just as a ruler but as a man. Will you stand beside me, not as subject but as companion?" Tears welled in Alara's eyes, a mixture of relief, joy, and the overwhelming sense that destiny had chosen this moment. "Yes," she said, "I will stand with you, always." Kale rose, tall and commanding, yet not distant. Together they stepped to the throne, not to claim power for power's sake, but to restore what had been lost, to rebuild a kingdom that had been stolen, and to honor the bond that had saved them both. The ruins of the fortress began to shift, magic bending to Kale's will, reshaping walls and towers, bringing light where there had been only shadow. The air seemed to hum with life again. Birds returned, and the first rays of dawn pierced through cracks in the stone, illuminating the throne room with gold and hope. Kale turned to Alara, a rare smile touching his lips. "The kingdom may have been ruined, but it lives again. And we have the chance to make it better than before." Alara smiled back, feeling the warmth of the sun and the strength of the king beside her. "We will," she said, "together." The fortress, once a place of darkness and curse, became a symbol of rebirth. Kale's past no longer bound him. The mistakes, betrayals, and curses were shadows he had faced and overcome. And in Alara, he had found something even more powerful than a throne: trust, courage, and love that would guide him forward. The journey had been perilous. The shadows, curses, and betrayal had tested them in ways neither had imagined. Yet they had survived. They had fought not just for survival but for redemption and hope. As the wind whispered through the newly restored halls, Kale and Alara stood together on the balcony, looking out over the land that stretched beneath them. Fields lay ready to be tilled, villages to be rebuilt, and people to be led once more. Kale's voice was soft, yet filled with certainty. "The crown is mine," he said, "but it feels empty without you at my side." Alara smiled, leaning against him. "Then it is ours," she said. "Not just yours, not just mine, ours." And for the first time in centuries, the Wolf King, the cursed, the betrayed, stood not in shadow, but in light, whole, free, and ready to embrace the future, with the woman who had saved him not from chains alone, but from the darkness within himself. The wind carried their laughter across the lands, a sound both fragile and unbreakable, echoing the truth that courage, trust, and love could conquer even the oldest curses. And somewhere, beyond the horizon, the world seemed to breathe again, waiting for the story of the Wolf King and the mortal who freed him to inspire generations yet to come.